From Ottawa, where Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland has announced she has resigned.
New measures that are being taken. Instead, she quits cabinet. I mean, it's an absolutely astounding development.
Prime Minister told her on Friday that he no longer wanted her to serve as Finance Minister and was offered another job in cabinet.
Remember when you got that $250 workers' benefit check? Well, that might have been the last straw for Chrystia Freeland. As Canada's finance chief, she was fighting an uphill battle against rising inflation and an affordability crisis. Now, with Freeland gone, what happens to your finances? Will taxes go up? Will benefits be cut? These are the questions keeping Canadians up at night, and we're here to find the answers. Let's go back to when Freeland was at her strongest. She was Trudeau's right-hand woman and the clear favorite to succeed him as finance minister and deputy prime minister. Her star was more brilliant than it could have been. She was regarded as the steady hand steering Canada's finances after navigating the country through the pandemic's economic upheaval. However, rifts began to appear in her relationship with Trudeau. The frequency and intensity of their disputes over economic policies increased. As the ever-fiscal conservative, Freeland vigorously opposed Trudeau's costly political gimmicks. In light of impending U.S. tariffs, she frequently cautioned about the depletion of Canada's fiscal powder and the perils of excessive spending.
From Ottawa, where Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland has announced she has resigned.
Feeling pressured by declining polling, Trudeau wanted to increase spending. He promoted well-liked policies like generous benefit checks and a GST/HST pause. But Freeland refused to back down. She maintained that these actions would worsen inflation and place Canada in a vulnerable financial situation. Trudeau's patience wore thin as the war dragged on. Instead of constantly questioning his spending plans, he needed someone who would approve them. Insiders reported heated exchanges between the two former allies, highlighting the tension that became evident in cabinet meetings. When Trudeau shocked political observers by offering Freeland another position within the government, the situation erupted. It was a blatant demotion and an overt indication that her tenure as the Liberal government's economic engine was drawing to a close.
Now, in a letter posted to X addressed to the Prime Minister, Freeland says the Prime Minister and her have found themselves at odds.
But why had things reached this point? The impending fall economic update holds the key to the solution. The government's financial plans and economic outlook were to be outlined in this important announcement. Something had to give because Trudeau and Freeland were at odds over its content. But the conflict between political expediency and fiscal prudence culminated as the update deadline drew near. The stage was set for a confrontation that would rock Canadian politics and leave the nation's economic policy in a bind.
The Prime Minister told her on Friday that he no longer wanted her to serve as Finance Minister and was offered another job in cabinet.
The phrase "devil is in the details" is frequently used in the context of politics. But what occurs when a government is in danger of collapsing due to those details? There would be repercussions that extended well beyond Parliament Hill, as the conflict over Canada's economic future reached a boiling point. A seemingly harmless $250 check was at the center of this explosive dispute. This tiny amount turned into the focal point of a heated economic dispute between Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland. Canada's economy was beset by slow growth, rising inflation, and the threat of U.S. tariffs. Ever the frugal one, Freeland felt that these matters required prudence and moderation.
She has concluded the only honest and viable path is to resign from cabinet.
Trudeau, however, had different plans. As his popularity declined, he advocated for populist policies like generous benefit checks and a GST/HST pause. Such actions would deplete Canada's fiscal powder at a time when they were most needed, Freeland warned, digging in her heels. According to her, if they splurged now, the nation would be helpless against possible U.S. tariffs. The warnings from the finance minister were ignored. Sensing the heat from voters, Trudeau demanded that the spending taps be opened. He maintained that these actions would give struggling Canadians much-needed respite. They were merely costly political gimmicks that would ultimately backfire, Freeland retorted. The tension escalated as the fall economic update drew near. Both sides refused to back down from this pivotal announcement, which turned into a battlefield. Perceiving his popular measures as essential to turning around his political fortunes, Trudeau pushed hard hard for them. Freeland retaliated equally vehemently, defending what she perceived as Canada's fragile economic foundation. The conflict between fiscal prudence and political expediency was evident in tense private discussions and heated cabinet meetings. According to insiders, there were slammed doors and shouting matches because neither side was willing to budge. In front of everyone's eyes, Trudeau and Freeland's once strong alliance was disintegrating.
We were expecting today, Karen, to be covering Chrystia Freeland in her announcement of the fall economic statement.
Something had to give because the update deadline was approaching. If Canada's two top leaders were at war, the government couldn't put up a unified front on the country's economic strategy. As the hours passed, it became evident that this deadlock would have a significant impact on both Canadian politics and the nation's economic prospects. There was a final, decisive confrontation on the horizon. Nobody could have predicted the startling turn of events that would unfold over the course of the next few hours, leaving Canada's economic strategy in ruins and the government reeling. Hours before Canada's important economic update, Parliament Hill was enveloped in a skeletal silence. Normally a hive of activity, Freeland's office was abruptly and mysteriously dark. Behind those closed doors, what invisible drama was going on?
Would go out to journalists under embargo. That means they couldn't report on any of it until Freeland delivers it at 4 p.m.
As government officials rushed to finalize the fall economic update, the atmosphere in Ottawa was electrifying. This announcement was crucial to the Liberal government's financial plan. It wasn't just any announcement, but there was a problem. Normally at the forefront of these preparations, the finance minister's team was nowhere to be seen. As the hours passed, rumors began to spread like wildfire. Chrystia Freeland was where? Liberal employees looked at each other anxiously, their phones ringing with desperate messages. It was unprecedented for Canada's top financial officer to be absent on the eve of such a significant event. There was a political storm simmering behind the scenes. According to sources, contentious talks were occurring in secret locations throughout the capital. Despite the desperate efforts of senior Liberal officials to turn things around, information was frustratingly lacking. The ranks of the party began to panic. Who would provide the economic update without Freeland at the helm? In light of this uncertainty, how would the markets respond? By the minute, the Liberal government's meticulously constructed facade of stability was coming apart. Everyone was wondering if Freeland would be present for the update as the deadline approached. Outside her office, journalists set up camp in the hopes of seeing her move.
We don't know what's going to happen now because the fall economic statement is entirely a work attributed to the finance minister.
Members of the opposition prepared their attacks for question period after sensing blood in the water. Then it came as suddenly as a lightning strike. The contents of a letter that landed on the Prime Minister's desk sent shockwaves through the power structure. The undisputed political star of Canada, Chrystia Freeland, had resigned. The government was left reeling by the shocking announcement. Canada's economic strategy was thrown into disarray in a single blow. Who would guide the ship through these choppy financial waters now that Freeland was gone? Canadians prepared for the upcoming aftershocks as the aftermath of this political earthquake was still developing. A pressing question arises as the fallout from Freeland's abrupt departure. Who is actually in charge of Canada's economy at this point? Her resignation has created a power vacuum that could completely destroy the country's financial stability. The government is currently confronted with enormous obstacles. There is a lot of uncertainty because of the impending important economic update. Will Trudeau follow Freeland's more conservative strategy, or will he spend wildly to please the public? Investors are nervous, and the markets are holding their breath. Amidst the confusion, however, a well-known name is being murmured in the hallways of Ottawa: Mark Carney. Trudeau has long courted the former governor of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. It appears that his recent appointment as a special advisor to the Liberal Party's task force on economic growth is a prelude to a more significant position. Could Carney be Trudeau's secret weapon? Concerns about Canada's economic stability are intensifying. High interest rates and an affordability crisis are plaguing the nation. The government's inflationary spending, according to critics, has only made matters worse. The Liberals' ability to guide the economy through these turbulent times is now seriously questioned in light of Freeland's departure.
New measures that are being taken. Instead, she quits cabinet. I mean, it's an absolutely astounding development.
The stakes for regular Canadians are extremely high. Will their mortgage payments keep going up in the sky? Will the government tighten its belt, or will there be more benefit checks in the future? You can feel the uncertainty, and millions of households are preparing for the effects. Trudeau is now compelled to assume command of the economic discourse. For a prime minister who is more at ease with feel-good photo ops than with fiscal policy, it's a risky move. Can he persuade Canadians and the rest of the world that he is in control of the economy? This political drama has yet to fully reveal its true cost. Canada's economic future is in jeopardy due to an impending cabinet shuffle and crucial trade negotiations. Whether the nation can recover its financial stability or if it is on the verge of financial collapse will be determined in the coming weeks.